Hello and welcome to our podcast, now called Cinema Crash. We've rebranded, we've been foreshadowing this. I'm Oscar, with me is my co host Karl. Say hello, Karl.
Hello, Carl.
I've returned. I've been gone for a few weeks, but now we're back. We've rebranded Cinema Crash. We are now also on YouTube. You can find all our episodes on YouTube where we try to do at least something more visually interesting than possible on Spotify and Anchor. But yeah, we are back. We want to talk about more Ninagawa. We've started this series where we go through a director's entire body of work. We chose Mika Ninagawa, so a director I'm not just fairly familiar with, I'm very familiar with. I've seen all her movies, I think an average of two times. Carl isn't as familiar. That's why we're, you know, synergy. Um, Today we're doing her second film, and I don't know, Carl, do you want to introduce the film?
Yeah, for sure. A couple weeks back, we watched Sakuran, her debut film, and this time we're watching Helter Skelter. Now, Helter Skelter is based on a 1995 manga. It is a kind of thriller, verging on horror movie. We've gone a bit back and forth on what exactly we think it defines as, but it centers on a girl called Lilico, who is the more or less the biggest model in Japan at the time. Her magazines are constantly selling out, and teenage girls around the country want to be like her or straight up just be her. However, unbeknownst to most, she has had full body cosmetic surgery that is now starting to show its wear and tear. Wrestling with this causes her to lash out at the people close to her, her manager, her whatchamacallit? The person who runs
Agent?
the agency. Yeah, the agent. She does a bunch of fairly morally questionable things towards people that she's either jealous of or feels she wants to control or needs validation from. This includes throwing acid in the face of a politician's daughter who's set to marry her boyfriend. Things such as this.
Also, in general, if you have not watched the movie yet and are listening to us, here are some content warnings for drug abuse and sexual abuse and like generally violence. It's not a very family friendly film.
No, several scenes did make me uncomfortable. Just generally, uh, it has some themes with a capital T.
Yeah,
But yeah, so she deals with this impending death, so to say, of her as a celebrity or her as an icon, and she doesn't deal with it in a great way. Let's just say that.
yeah. Um, so again, I've already seen the film. This was like my third, fourth, maybe fifth time that I've seen the film. I've written a term paper about it in the past for university. We'll get into that later. But Carl, you haven't seen it before, so why don't you give us an introduction to your like experience with what did you think of the film?
Yeah, for sure. So generally, when I have a movie that I want to watch, that was suggested to me by someone else, something like that, someone whose opinion I value enough to just watch whatever they recommend without knowing anything, I will watch it as blind as possible. So I did that with this movie. So I didn't know anything about like the more uncomfortable themes or the horror thriller aspect of it. I didn't know anything except it was made by Ninagawa, and I had seen some, very Ninagawa-esque promotional pictures for it. And so going into the movie, for starters, you immediately notice it's a Ninagawa film.
Hmm.
The very first scene, which I think is a great intro scene, where you have all of these pretty colors, you have the Japanese big city with all the teenagers talking, rapid cuts to magazines being sold out, rapid cuts to Lilico, doing photo shoots or getting ready or being pampered and all of this. Yeah, I thought it was a great way to open up the movie. And then all of the weird shit that follows was kind of oh really? Just like it gripped me. I guess that's
Hmm.
the best way to put it. I did find it interesting that it has these this element because there's this detective as a side character.
Yeah, he's a prosecutor. So, uh, right, not actually a detective, but kind of acts as if he was one.
He kind of fulfills the role that a detective would in a story
Mm,
like this. And occasionally you will get looks into like them doing their work. Uh, he's a very poetic prosecutor. So that's kind of a way for them to get this uncomfortable stuff into the movie very quickly, right? So you
mm,
know that it's there. There's something going on. You don't have all the knowledge yet, right? You've seen some photos of crime scenes, people who have died, right? There's bloody crime scenes. You immediately know, right? Okay, this is a movie that is going to be about this stuff, but they aren't the primary main characters. Lilico is the primary main character. And this means that when Lilico gets close to having her mental breakdowns, right?
mm,
Something goes off in your brain that's, oh, right, this is a movie where people die. I don't know where this is going to lead.
mm,
Uh, I think just having that already telling the audience fucked up shit might go down in this movie, that keeps you on the edge of your seat as you watch this person's slow descent into mental drug induced instability.
yeah, they also have these like interview scenes in there, right, where just like the side characters are, well, no, I don't interrogated, not really interviewed, but right, they it seems like an
Yeah.
interview at first, but later you see the prosecutor Asada talking to them, and it's fairly clear that it's more like an interrogation, where they talk about Ririko in the past sense.
Yes.
All the time you're thinking something is gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. It's told in this uh semi chronological way
Mm,
that constantly keeps you, or at the very least me, on the edge of my seat, being like, what is the weird thing that is going to go down, right? Because Lilico and the actor who portrays her, she really does a great job
mm,
of really selling us on the fact that she isn't stable. She isn't uh, in a good place, right? Mentally, emotionally, she doesn't have a support network. She is in a descent. And the focus on her appearance also tells us that people don't really care about her, like for reals. You know, there's definitely something there to be said about societal beauty standards and all of that. But yeah, it just like is such a great way to build up the fact that she isn't she is a person who is capable of anything,
mm.
right? And we're just kind of waiting in suspense to see when shit hits the fan.
Did you find Riddico in any way sympathetic?
Uh, yes.
Yeah.
Uh, yes. Uh, it's like, of course, most people and most circumstances are going to be, you know, sympathetic in some way. People rarely do bad things
Mm,
for no reason, right? I don't think you should do things that she does, right? But at the same time, it's made more or less abundantly clear that she is also a victim of society in a way, right?
mm,
She is a victim of having people around her who build her up as if she means nothing without the way she looks. Uh, her getting addicted to drugs is a result of her being pumped full of drugs by her she calls her mama, right?
mm,
This person in a position of power who not only lies to her but uses her, right?
mm.
uh, to kind of live out her own dreams. In that way, I think Lilico is a sympathetic character, but she is also a frightening character.
Yeah, I think like she's sympathetic in the way that you pity her as a
Hmm.
viewer, but I feel like the movie is very much trying to tell us that she is garbage.
She's not a good person.
Yeah.
Had you asked me that question, my answer would be no. She is a person who makes her own issues someone else's problem, right?
Yeah.
Uh, her constant need for validation means that she tears other people down. It means that she will fuck your boyfriend while you're watching, right?
Mm,
Uh, which, you know, that's something that, on, of course, a smaller scale, isn't very uncommon in real life, right? People seeking external validation and making bad decisions because of it. Like, obviously, Mean Girls isn't as serious of a movie, right?
Mm,
But that movie also has central themes of tearing other people down,
mm,
because you're afraid of like the new girl being more pretty than you, right?
mm,
That happens in this movie as well, where the new girl is more pretty than Lilico, and she sends her manager to cut her face open.
mm. I do like that you mentioned Lilico as a victim of society and the whole thing, because I think also that's an important point, because the film is about, this is very Ninagawa, it's a feminist film, of course. It's about a woman's agency over her own body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Ririko originally gave that away. She didn't need agency because she was on top of the world, but then later, she can't regain her agency. And while she is garbage, it is never once questioned whether she deserves agency over her own body, right?
Yeah.
It's never like, well, this is all your fault and you have to continue being this way because that's what you deserve. But it is fundamentally clear, like it isn't just never questioned that a woman should have agency over her own body, even if the woman is extreme garbage. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. She is a bad person. There's no doubt about that, of course. But also, bad things have happened to her. And, the fact that she is bad does not diminish
Mm,
the fact that those things are also bad, right?
yeah.
It does not diminish that other people in the story are also bad people.
Mm,
One of the big things is when it comes out that she has undergone beauty treatments, and
mm,
uh, Ninagawa makes it seem as if the whole world turns on her, which tells us that, yeah, her worries were real. Her worries were true, right?
mm,
It is not unfounded that she has this breakdown, especially as she has tied her entire value and existence to her looks. This obviously isn't Ninagawa saying it's okay to throw acid in people's faces, but I think at some point it is a kind of everyone is complicit thing.
mm, yeah. So going more into the Ninagawa side of things, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about the color red. No, let's talk
Gotta
about,
be one of my favorite colors.
yeah, gotta be. Um, let's talk about, like, generally, like, I mean, it is a very Ninagawa film, right? But like, in what ways? How does it compare to Sakuran and like stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as mentioned, it's once again very like a photogenic movie, right? Everyone's attractive. Everyone who is supposed to be attractive, conventionally attractive. I mean, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of very nice pictures. There's
Yes.
nice photography in a way, like especially when they have like a standing camera rather than like a hand camera that moves around or like a dolly. It's very feminist again. I think also that it very much has the same energy of a single woman can't really change society, even if she escapes society.
Yeah.
We discussed that as well, of course, at the end of Sakuran, and we interpret the ending. Yeah, do you have anything to add there?
Um, no. I mean, like I told you before we started recording, right?
Mm,
Ninagawa, she made one movie, then she went, no, fuck this. I'm cranking it up to 100.
mm,
This movie is more
mm,
Ninagawa. It is more intense Ninagawa. It is Ninagawa in more scenes. It is Ninagawa using more colors.
mm,
Uh, yeah, it is Ninagawa making use of the modern setting. This includes neon lighting. This includes like colored lighting from like a disco ball in some scenes. You have the end scene, which is really trippy, with club music and
mm,
all of that. You have all of these scenes, which just like you mentioned, it's just like a photo,
mm,
but drawn out, right? The scene of Lilico sitting in this huge bathtub filled with rose petals. Uh, the scenes of Lilico sitting in her room surrounded by garbage. Lilico walking through her apartment complex with these doors in vibrant
Mm,
colors.
yeah.
All of these scenes that, you know, would also make for great photographs.
Yeah, in general, like especially as like a photo book, right? Like the images themselves kind of tell a story and how they continue on. And I think we've talked about this last time as well because I sent you a link to like Ninagawa's website, right?
Hmm.
Where you see her images, and there's also like a lot of like blurry thing, right? Ninagawa's photography isn't just like the perfect shot over and over again. It really tells a story in even in movement in the still image, which I quite like how that also translates to the movie, of course.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of shots of teenage girls throughout the movie,
Mm,
different styles of fashion, plenty of the gyaru type
mm,
of girl. They're shot from different angles depending on most likely a number of things, but I feel like they're shot differently in the start of the movie when they're kind of on Liliko's side
mm,
as they are towards the end of the movie. I can't tell you in which ways because I don't have the images in my head, but I
mm.
feel like she did something with that. I seem to recall it.
The music choices were also like fairly interesting again.
Hmm.
We have, of course, again classical music, one of the many uses of ode to joy in film.
Yes.
Uh, but also, what I found very interesting, and only figured out afterwards when I looked at the credits on this viewing before the podcast, the initial scene with like her unwrapping her bandages, right? There's a music that sounds fairly off and like kind of shrill,
Hmm.
and that's by a German punk band from the 70s.
Yo.
I only know, like, I recognized the name, of course, and I was like, wait, they don't sound like this. And now I listened to, like, the music, I looked it up, and yeah, they do sound like that. Just, yeah, sure. So once again, just, like, very different kinds of music
Hmm.
she uses throughout.
The uh, the scene you described with her unwrapping her bandages, uh, I was very uncomfortable. I
Understandable.
do not like that kind of imagery. I think
Mm.
it's very uncanny valley.
Mm. Yeah, definitely.
Uh, yeah, in like a lot of things in this movie, like especially for it only being Ninagawa's second film,
Mm.
were really like impressive to me. Of course, we've talked about her shot composition and stuff like that, but even things like having the focus constantly be on Liliko's appearance
Mm.
in every dialogue, regardless of whether this character is portrayed as a good person or a bad person or somewhere
Mm.
in between. Uh, the prosecutor guy, I think, is kind of our main good guy of the movie, right?
I am breathing heavily through my nose. I don't think he's a good guy, but that's also kind of what my term paper was about.
Hmm.
So you make your point. I will later argue about it.
I mean, from the perspective of he is trying to bring down a corrupt organization, and I don't know. I guess the way he's portrayed draws parallels to other heroic type characters. Usually, the kind of prosecutor detective guy
Mm,
is the one that we're supposed to root for. But even he, like, constantly is talking about how Lilico looks and how the plastic surgery won't last and all of these things, right? I don't think there's a single person, uh, save for maybe Lilico's sister, who doesn't bring
mm,
attention to her appearance
yeah.
and how she looks, including Lilico herself, of course.
Yes, definitely. There's also like in general the superior of the prosecutor and his assistant, right? The guy who doesn't appear as much in the film, but when they have the first images of the murder, he's also like, "Oh, what a shame that she died. She was such a beautiful girl." Well, it
Hmm.
wasn't murder; it was suicide, right? But yeah, the first death because of the plastic surgeries. So it's once again like it's only tragic because she was so beautiful, right? Like the
Yes.
whole value in beauty, and the film really does sell it that like beauty is everything, without the film seeming unnatural, right? Like it's still like
Yeah.
very modern
It,
and not. It's not like a dystopic future in which beauty is everything. It's just our world, but like the focus on beauty has been turned up a bit more.
yeah, and it also doesn't feel condescending, right? It's not a movie going,
Mm.
do you get it? Do you get what the theme is? Right? Uh, do we have to spell it out for you? It's more like, oh yeah, this is a movie about beauty.
Mm.
And our main character is a character focused on beauty, right? And
Mm.
also because people in the movie don't question it, it comes across as more natural as well. There's no scene where Lilico goes, "Oh, I wish I didn't have to rely on my beauty," right? Like that's not even a concept to her. That's not even something that could be in any way, shape, or form. Rather, she wants to be beautiful. She wants to be the most beautiful, even.
Mm.
And the fact that that becomes more and more attainable, uh, less and less attainable, rather, is of course the main reason for her downfall.
Yeah, she do sure do be falling down.
She sure do be falling down.
Maybe the most like visually nice to look at downfall in the history of film. No, that's probably
Hmm.
not right. There's surely other very pretty downfalls, but I do love just the way the camera is used, like a later erratic hand camera, the colors.
Yeah. Uh, I am a sucker for the uh weird shit happens to classical
Mm,
music trope. Like it is done a lot, but every time it's done, I'm like, this is so cool.
mm. I also love there's a lot of like one-liners in this film that sound very high and mighty, while technically just saying like completely inane stuff,
Hmm.
and I love that. It gives it this like whole like grander than life energy, right? Like the film starts on just the word at the beginning. Laughing sounds a lot like crying. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, no shit, bro.
Yeah. I mean,
um,
it also I think gives a sense that like yeah, these characters have big egos.
hmm. Yeah, and then like
Uh,
right, they talk like we are just gears in the machine of processing desires. It's like,
hmm.
yeah, these people are bigger than life, but
Yeah,
they just say stuff that like doesn't mean anything.
yeah. I like the prosecutor guy in like his first scene. He
Hmm.
says something about his coffee that's very poetic sounding,
Yeah, yeah.
and his coworker is like, "Was that a poem?" And he's like, "What?"
I love the assistant, by the way. She's played by Suzuki, who is most commonly known as one of the girls in Hannah and Alice.
Hmm.
So, which is my favorite film. Um, so of course I love her, but like every film she's in, I'm drawn to her, even if she plays like really minor roles.
Yeah, like a lot of really good actors in
Mm,
this one. Uh, I can't think of a single like actor
yeah,
that wasn't very good for
yeah,
what they were meant to do. The mama character, just looking at her, it's like, yeah,
mm,
yeah, that's what these people look like.
yeah, yeah, and of course Erika Savagiri, right, who plays
Hmm.
Ririco. Just yeah, she does her job.
She do her job. Yeah. She was unpredictable in almost every scene. Just really fun to watch.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, also just like regarding the Ninagawa style again, I think the whole like turning it up, just like especially the colors and everything. We'll get to that later when we go to her Netflix show. Depending on how much of that we are going to cover. The neon, of course, gets made more like there's just more neon in Dinah, which we'll talk about next.
Yes.
But like it's really like Helter Skelter is like the epitome of Ninagawa isms.
Yes. That is the vibe I am getting as well.
It's also her critically most acclaimed film.
Hmm.
So, but we'll talk about that once we're in like a retrospective right at the end of our
Yeah.
podcast series.
I mean, I do think it has every right to be. I think it's a very
Mm,
good movie.
yeah, it is.
Um, I think it's like I am a diner stan until the day I die, but for most people, I think this is probably the Ninagawa film that I think is the most important to see of the three that I have seen.
Mm.
There's a lot of fucking in this movie.
There's so much fucking.
I do like the early scene of Lilico fucking her boyfriend
In the like
with
mirrors.
with 4 mirrors.
Yeah.
And he does what DJ Khaled could never. Uh, uh, he do be going down on her and having it be juxtaposed to her manager,
Mm.
kind of having uh, ambiguous, ambiguously consensual sex with
It is
her
not
boyfriend.
consensual.
That's more or less just for him to get his rocks off
Mm.
while she's cooking in a shitty apartment.
Mm.
Yeah, there's a lot of a lot of fucking, lot of boob, uh, no penis for the entire movie.
That's like just like the male gaze, then I guess.
Yeah, I would never look at a penis.
Yeah, never.
So gay.
That's I think a good transition to my term paper, right?
Penis.
Penis. Are you? I mean, you've definitely heard of the male gaze, right? But are you any more familiar than like the whole gaming debacle that I don't know is probably like 15 years old already?
I do the male gaze every day of my life. No, I have passing knowledge of the male gaze, right? I'm not gonna pretend I am an expert on it, uh, but I do know what it means and I do know how it's used.
I am also no expert on it, but I have read the text like 2 or 3 times for my term paper, and it does quote or like refer to Sigmund Freud a lot. So obviously it's nonsense. But yeah, just like as a very short thing then for any listeners who might not know it, the male gaze is a theory by Laura Mulvey, which was made in the like 70s or 80s. She wrote that down. It focuses very much on 40s, 50s, 60s Hollywood, so the more classical Hollywood. And in it, she writes that the woman in film is only there for the pleasure of the male viewer. The way the camera is used, there's 3 different uh, parts she does to it, right? Like the pleasure of the male protagonist, the pleasure of the male viewer, and the pleasure of the camera, like how the camera films it. This is of course utter nonsense because like men can be gay or asexual, women can be gay, and also like have a sexual gaze on it. I personally prefer the term patriarchal gaze, right?
Yes, that's what I was about to say. Was
Yeah.
I think the male is usually used as a stand-in for what we rather
I
refer
mean,
to as the
more.
patriarchy, right?
Yeah, I mean, Moby is very much on like sexual pleasure. So I think she like maybe it's just maybe nowadays if I don't know if Moby is still alive, she would say that. But I like the very much the patriarchal desire to enforce control, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Did you say Morbius?
But no, but sure.
What's the name of the person who
Laura
made the theory
Mulvey,
again?
Mulvey,
Oh,
but sure, Laura Mobius.
yeah, Morbius.
In her feminist essay, "It's Morbin Time."
Yeah.
Um,
No, but yeah, because in my experience with the male gaze or the patriarchal gaze, uh, I think the patriarchal gaze
yeah,
is also a better name because I think the male gaze is reductive as
yeah,
well in also the way that uh, men are often portrayed
mm,
for men as well, right? Uh, Action heroes
mm,
are usually not there for the sake of the straight female viewer, right? But
mm,
rather as an image of what a man wants to look like.
yeah, yeah. So definitely, like patriarchal gaze is better, but obviously it's heavily known as the male gaze. And the way it's used in the movie is subvertingly, subversive. That's the word.
Yes.
English is hard. Um, and I love that because basically the entire film puts the viewer in a position of, viewing pleasure. We enjoy seeing Ririco break down, and the film then subverts that and criticizes the viewer, specifically you and me watching the movie for doing this. um, and it does that in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Enough that I could write a term paper about it, right? And that's one point is the prosecutor, who is basically the stand-in for the viewer, right? He's the outsider looking in, and he's incredibly condescending towards Ririco.
Yes.
And he sees her as nothing more than a tool. She's just a chess piece, basically, right? He's seen through her from the start, right? Like that's what he thinks. And then they have their encounter in the aquarium, and I love that aquarium, by the way, because it's used in a film by her dad, by Yuki Ninagawa, and it's also used in like a music video from one of my favorite bands, Great Aquarium. Um, no, so when they meet, right, he gives her a nickname that she didn't ask for, um, and he's like always like, I know what you're thinking, but he doesn't, and that's how he loses her. He fails in his job because he is very condescending towards Liriko. And right, there's a lot of that stuff. There's the way the mirrors, especially in the first scene, right? We have the prosecutor's narration, and Ririko, we only see her through mirrors, or like at least there's a mirror in the image, right? So the viewer is also looking through her. We see everything about her, and then that all comes crushing down. And ultimately, she stabs out her eye and like basically denies the gaze, right? She doesn't. She stabs out her eye in a message that she doesn't want to do the gaze anymore. She leaves the society that's based on the patriarchal gaze. I think
Yeah.
that's really cool.
I think ironically, the stabbing of her eye, it kind of immortalizes her in the end, right?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely also like the world goes on and she's still relevant, right? Of course, in a few different ways, but yeah. And there's a scene with like the what do you call it, the like cinema hall, right, where before she has her press conference, and it's like this dreamlike sequence where she once again talks with the prosecutor,
Mm-hmm.
and Ririko is standing on the stage in front of the screen, and the prosecutor is on like an audience seat, so like it again connects him with us, the viewer, and then she's like, fuck you, I do what I want. I'm not dependent on you and you don't know me.
Yeah.
Or in like her greater than life words, what does she say? So I decide and I destroy myself. Something like that.
Yeah.
And there's so much. And like the final scene where the younger model, they are like in Hong Kong or wherever, and they are in the club, and then she goes like, she sees the agent, she sees Hada, and follows her, and the stairs down, there's a lot of mirrors on the side, and suddenly they stop, and you don't have any mirrors anymore. So she's leaving the gazing society, right, and goes into like this room in which there's only one mirror, and it belongs to Ririko.
Yeah.
And that's so cool. I love that. It's just like so much technically meaningless stuff that you can interpret as like male gaze stuff. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. And like, uh, going back to what we were talking about, in terms of Lilico being sympathetic or not, right?
Mm,
Uh, like she was pushed to her breaking point, and similar to in Sakuran, like she did get out, right?
mm,
She isn't stuck in that system anymore. Uh, which in some ways that is a happy ending for her, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Like the idea of Lilico lives on, right? Like they have plastered on every wall the legend of Lilico, the documentary series or whatever.
Mm,
But she's not Lilico anymore.
yeah.
And she seems content with that, right? Happy with that.
Well,
It's all,
laughing sounds a lot like crying, so we don't actually know what her reaction at the end is.
that's true. That's true. I suppose I read it as kind of a
Yeah,
condescending.
yeah.
Oh, you're still in that. Like you're still doing this shit.
I think every time I watch the movie, it's different because it could also be like a trauma kind of reaction, right? That it's all coming back.
Mm-hmm.
It can be condescending. It can be like scheming. I don't know. There's like so much that you can read into that like smile.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe she just heard a really good joke.
Maybe she did. Maybe the Kozua, the other model, had like something on her cheek.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I agree with you on your thesis statement and everything. The gay sure is centric in this movie, and plenty of times watching the movie, I felt iffy about myself. Right, like I was
Mm,
a voyeur in something that I
mm,
shouldn't be. The Lilico fucking in the mirror room, obviously. It's like, well, this seems like an intimate moment that I shouldn't be disturbing. The me looking at uh the manager having sex when she doesn't
mm,
really want to and doing nothing to intervene. Pretty much every sex scene, but plenty of other scenes as well. Me looking at Lilico's trauma breakdown, which is supposed to
mm.
be a personal, private moment for her,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I'm
definitely.
intruding upon it. There's so much stuff that makes you feel kind of gross for watching it.
Maybe we are inherently gross because we are humans. I don't know.
Perhaps.
Yeah,
But it also ties into the grander theme, of
yeah,
course, of
yeah.
Lilico is only an object to be either gazed upon, to be desired, to
Mm,
be jealous of, or she is a laughing stock. She is something to make fun of, right? Oh, she used to be fat. Oh, she had to have cosmetic surgery. Oh, now she stabbed her eye out. Now she's a sensation. Now she's something to be talked about. It's a shame because she was so pretty, right?
mm.
But she's never Lilico, just a person.
Yeah, yeah. Which also I think is, just like the entire celebrity status and like how we deal with celebrities is also like very interesting, especially in recent news. With like Johnny Depp, Amber Heard
Hmm.
case. Wow, now we can get millions of views because we mentioned that.
Oh,
No,
for sure.
just tried like stuff that like there's no point in following all that, but like it gets torn apart, right? Get like people feed on it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like parasocial relationships have
Yeah,
become such a huge part of
yeah,
society in general, but online society especially, right?
mm,
You see every day some new YouTuber gets quote unquote canceled because of something,
mm,
right? Stand-up comedians get canceled, uh, and plenty of these people have done problematic things, right? But the level of care that you need to have in a lot of these cases isn't healthy to begin with. And of course, the honestly, in my opinion, disgusting sensationalization of the Depp Heard case uh,
mm.
is kind of fucked up,
Sure is.
right? Like that, if nothing else, is the viewer being voyeuristic. Uh, but in the movie's case, I'm more or less forced to be the voyeur if I want to watch the movie, right?
Mm.
For my podcast.
I mean, it's a thing that like film theorists say that like film is inherently voyeuristic and like not just a film that is about voyeurism, right? Any film
Hmm.
is like this, but film theorists say a lot of things.
For sure they do, and they likely are very interesting to some people. Yeah, I think I care most when it's applicable to real life scenarios like
Mm,
this, right? Where people choose every day whether or not to monetize a court proceeding. People choose every day whether or not to go on Reddit and shit on either party, right?
yeah.
Uh, whether to spread misinformation or whether to get into arguments on Twitter. People choose these things every day. And at the end of the day, it's two people in a court proceeding about domestic abuse
Mm,
and libel that really should probably not be anyone's business.
yeah. Absolutely.
Uh, and yeah, Ninagawa, ahead of her time, predicted the Johnny Depp Amber Heard court case. We do be standing.
We do be standing. We do respect the girl boss, and that goes for both Lilico as for Mika Ninagawa.
For sure. For sure. Uh, I think compared to Sakuran, uh, to switch gears completely,
Mm.
um, I think that it's very interesting because in many ways this is a very similar movie to Sakuran, right?
Mm,
And I think what we'll discover from doing this series is that Ninagawa really likes to make almost the same film.
mm,
You have the female character who starts the movie off with a monologue, kind of philosophical monologue, and you have the ending where she has escaped, whatever
mm,
it may be. She's living in solidarity or alongside someone else, and there is a certain level of ambiguity to it. Uh, that's in both Sakuran and this movie.
mm,
There is a focus on beauty, right? Uh,
mm,
with Kyoha being the most beautiful courtesan, and obviously Ririco being the most beautiful person.
mm.
Uh, but as we also mentioned, this is like, I don't know, Ninagawa like tested the waters for one movie and then went all in. That's so nuts to me.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that this was like her second film for sure.
No, absolutely not. And like even Sakuran wasn't that
Yeah,
tame, right? It
yeah.
wasn't like, oh, she's playing it safe with this one. Like we talked a bit about how it was maybe style over substance, but
Especially for being an adaptation, right? Because like
hmm
adaptation is like one of the first films you would like expect people to play it safe because they don't have to think about like the script and like especially manga adaptations you have a lot of the visuals already given, right?
yes.
And then to go like so much over what would be expected. That's what's promising about Ninagawa.
Yeah, Ninagawa, she feels like she very much has a vision
Mm.
that she wants to stick by as much as she can. And that's something I can respect a lot.
Yep.
I think, I don't know, I think that when you have one profession and you get into the other, right? Like she was a photographer and then she became a director. I think there has to be some pull,
Yeah.
like some reason that you want to do the other thing.
Yeah. Especially if you're successful at the other, right? Because like
Yes,
it's money isn't the pull here because like she probably makes enough money as a photographer.
yes, exactly. On the other hand, you know, it was likely more of a risk even
Mm.
becoming a
Yeah.
director.
Exactly.
I don't think the source material for Sakuran is a hugely popular thing, although I might be wrong on that, of course.
Yeah. Like like globally, of course, it isn't. Nobody has heard of Sakuran. Um. But like in Japan, it might have been a bigger thing when it came out.
And then like doing it using uh, interesting choices in music. We talked about that a lot in Sakuran. Using all these interesting directorial quirks. Uh, yeah, I can. I really have a great deal of respect for at the very least her early works. I can't speak on the later stuff, of course.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
Yeah, and then obviously like Sakuran, we already had good things to say about that. This movie, like the difference is night and day.
Mm.
There's so much more of Ninagawa, and it's in every scene,
Yeah.
and it feels more for a purpose.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's still like so much style in it, but it's not style over substance at all because there's also so much substance, right?
Yes,
Like every shot feels like deliberate and intentional, and like yeah, again, I have my interpretation where like almost every scene is made to subvert the male gaze,
yeah,
and yeah, everything has a point. That's definitely pretty nice.
yeah. Even small things like Lilico gifts a lipstick to
Mm,
her manager, and then we get this scene where the manager enters the apartment. We see her only through a mirror, right?
mm.
Almost as if to signify she started wearing makeup, perhaps for the male gaze, or in
Well,
this
for
case, it would
fitting
probably be the female gaze, right? Like you were into.
yeah.
Uh, because of course this movie also, uh, I think importantly, has
Mm,
sex scenes as well, which I can't speak on how progressive that is, but it feels cool. I
yeah.
mean, it's not portrayed necessarily in a great light, but still dope that it's there.
They certainly don't like shove it under the rug, right? That
hmm
stuff like that exists.
And I also don't feel like it was ever like oh, this is because she's a fucked up individual, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes you will get that in my experience with
yeah,
well,
yeah.
with media globally, right? But with manga and stuff as well, where oh, this guy is a freak because he has sex with men, or he has sex with men because he is a freak, right?
Mm.
Those two are the options, and here it's like, no, she likes sex for validation
She is
purposes,
also a freak, but
and she is a freak.
yeah,
The two are not.
not correlated.
Yeah, there's no causation there, right? It's but yeah, even these smaller scenes that of course look very dope, like seeing
Mm.
character through a mirror and then seeing them actually.
Mm.
A lot of movies do that, and it's always pretty cool.
Yeah.
But here it also ties into what you were mentioning, right? And what you wrote an entire thesis paper on.
Yep. I think we can also like wrap it up here, right? I think
Yeah, I think
this
so.
was certainly some words that we said, and I think we said everything.
We did say plenty of things, yeah. Oh, do you have any last minute remarks on the film?
No, people should watch it. I've been trying to make people watch this film for like at least 2 years now, and I don't think anyone has like, except for you, I have one friend who has actually watched the film on my recommendation.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I went on Letterbox to log it earlier, and it's just like, oh, my entire friends list has it on their plan to watch.
yeah,
More or less. Yeah, I agree. More people should watch it. And if you are listening to this episode, then you might want to watch along with us as well. Next time we will be doing Diner, so pencil that in.
yeah, that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. Uh, I don't think I have anything more to add.
Nope, same here.
Yeah, so let's wrap it up. This has been the newly rebranded Cinema Crash podcast. Now, with the return of Asuka, it's been really nice having you back, Asuka.
Hmm.
Um, as always, uh, you can go back and listen to our previous episodes. I tried to do some stuff without Asuka. Talked about Ali. Talked about horror with Ali. I also talked about Ali with Ali. Last time, you can go a couple more weeks back and you will find our previous episode on Sakuran, where we talk a bit more about who Ninagawa is, and we start to get a feel for some of her Ninagawa isms. What's your favorite Ninagawa ism, Asuka?
The color red, for
The
sure.
color, yeah.
No,
Uh,
also like the feminism, the like, and like especially the in a way pessimistic feminism, right? That a single woman cannot change society, but she can escape it. I think
hmm
that's a very cool thing to do as
Yeah,
well.
more grounded take on it.
Yeah, and also the color red.
And also the color red. Asuka is a bull.
Hmm. I mean, I do have my Spanish genes, right?
You do have your Spanish genes,
It's
yeah.
in my DNA. The color red.
Um, yeah, we will be back in 2 weeks' time talking about Diner, Ninagawa's third film. I'm very excited. It's a really good film.
Hmm.
As always, our socials are in description. Thank you so much for listening. Do you have anything to add, Asuka?
Nope. Bye bye.
Bye bye.